It hurts. Don't move around. Hui Yinxing furrowed his brows and gently removed my hand that was tightly gripping his collar, then carefully examined my teeth. With my mouth propped open by the mouth gag, I could barely speak clearly. The pain made it even more difficult for me to articulate. All I could do was glare at him with tear-filled eyes to express my discontent. Last week, my roommate told me that the doctor at this clinic was an incredibly handsome guy, and also a senior from our school, several grades above us. Since I happened to need to see a dentist, I made an appointment promptly. Who could have imagined he would be so cold-hearted? Had I known, I would have made an appointment with a more gentle-mannered doctor. Hui Yinxing turned a blind eye to my grievance. This tooth is rather severely decayed. Soreness is a normal symptom. You shouldn't overreact. What he implied was that I had startled him. Is that reasonable? Is it? I'm in pain, so why can't I cry out? I stared at him, fuming, and resisted with my eyes. Shortly after, he withdrew his hand, changed his tools, and sure enough, the soreness in my gums disappeared. I blinked in surprise. He completely ignored me and continued to focus meticulously on the task at hand. Oh, is it over? I asked, my speech slurred. What else would it be? He put down his things and replied nonchalantly. I had spent so much money, and the treatment ended so quickly. I couldn't help but feel a sense of being shortchanged. As if he could read my mind, Hui Yinxing leaned closer and asked, "Shall we extract another tooth?" I shook my head vigorously. No need. The assistant beside me glanced at me and asked, "Your canines are rather sharp. Do you want them filed down?" Huh. I turned my head in bewilderment and looked at her. Why file them down? I'm really fond of my canines. The assistant smiled and said, "It would enhance your appearance significantly if they were filed down." Huh. What's unattractive about sharp canines? No need to file them. Hui Yinxing turned my head back, extended a finger, and gently probed in my mouth. There was a rare glimmer of amusement in his eyes. They looked quite nice. He was astonishingly good-looking, with a face that was exquisitely proportioned. His long and narrow eyes combined a coldness with tenderness, which was extremely captivating. The slightly protruding bone on the bridge of his nose added a unique charm to his handsomeness. My heart started pounding rapidly. I immediately forgave his previous coldness. I couldn't wait to send a message to my roommate, telling her, "You were right. Hui Yinxing is really handsome." After everything was done, for some reason, Hui Yinxing casually rubbed the corner of my mouth. "It's a bit red. It'll be fine in a while. Don't worry." His sudden tenderness made me wonder if he had feelings for me. He surely did. I stared at him eagerly, my mouth watering. I had the urge to pounce on him and remove his white coat. Perhaps my gaze was too blatant. Hui Yinxing cleared his throat and lowered his eyes to remove his gloves. "Let's add each other on WeChat," he said. He wanted to add me on WeChat. He must have a crush on me. I was overjoyed. Just as I was about to act coy and pretend to be reserved, he picked up his phone and said, "One of the fillings is on the edge, and there's a risk of it falling out. If there are any issues, you can contact me on WeChat." I was so disappointed. No, it was just an excuse. He just wanted to get close to me. I was so carried away by this sudden love that I picked up the phone on my stomach with a mixture of excitement and pride, unlocked it with my thumb. Hui Yinxing leaned over. The moment my phone screen unlocked, he froze. I looked at my phone screen and felt like dying of embarrassment. Why was it that kind of webpage? Help. I had secretly opened it while waiting for my turn and forgot to close it. Savez-me. My heart seemed to stop. My hands were shaking violently, and I was sweating profusely. When my brain finally started working, I quickly swiped the screen to close the page. But, instead of closing, it entered the details page. Help. I wanted to run away, but there was no escape. With a sense of shame that made me wish I could disappear, I opened my WeChat QR code for him to scan, and then I fled. Goodbye, Mom. I want to live on another planet. In the elevator, the more I thought about it, the more embarrassed I felt. I banged my head against the wall, making a loud bang sound. The other passengers quietly moved to the corner, looking scared. It didn't matter anymore. What could be more embarrassing than being caught by a handsome guy while reading that kind of novel? My phone rang. I found it was a message from Hui Yinxing. I almost had another heart-stopping moment. I clicked it open. It was just his instructions. Don't chew on bones, ice cubes, and the like recently. Also avoid eating food that is too cold, too hot, or too dark in color. That was all. It was as if nothing had happened. How could that be? He must be secretly laughing at me. Who should I reply? If I don't, won't it seem like I'm guilty? I held my phone for 3 minutes, and when I reached the subway station, I finally gritted my teeth, composed myself, and replied, "Okay, thank you." When I looked up, I felt that many people around were secretly looking at me with strange expressions. I was so scared that I quickly took a peek at my phone to make sure they didn't see anything else. Although only one person had found out, I felt as if the whole world knew what I had done. Wei Yinxing wouldn't tell anyone, would he? Is he talking about this with his colleagues right now? He wouldn't announce it to the world, would he? I'm so embarrassed. I'll never come to this clinic again. No, I'll never see a dentist again in my life. Woohoo! When I returned to the coffee shop, the junior who worked with me there looked at me with a complicated expression. Senior, you. I was startled. What's wrong? Did he know about what happened to me too? Why is your forehead so red? Phew, I let out a sigh of relief and looked at myself in the glass of the store. It should be from hitting it in the elevator. I'm really strong. I bumped into a pole while walking. I replied with a perfunctory smile. How could you be so careless? He sneered and then wrapped an ice cube in a towel and pressed it against my forehead. Put this on. Don't let it swell. I quickly stepped back. No need. It's not that serious. His overly concerned actions made me feel uneasy. If he were just an ordinary junior, I wouldn't think too much. But the problem was he seemed to have a crush on me. His name was Cheng Feng, a junior, and he was a guy with a great aura. Originally, we were from different departments and had no interaction. However, the school did something strange. When I was already a senior, they suddenly announced that we needed 10 extracurricular credits to graduate. Coincidentally, this year's school anniversary was coming up, and they needed volunteers. Participating could earn 5 extracurricular credits. Without hesitation, I signed up. I was assigned to the logistics group. At the first meeting of the group, Cheng Feng sat next to me. He seemed to have no social anxiety and could talk about anything. I was drawn into his rhythm. That night, he even knew where I went to kindergarten. Now he had also come to the coffee shop with me. I didn't dislike him, but I had a strong sense of boundaries. Since I hadn't known him for long, I was somewhat resistant to his closeness. 8. Cheng Feng noticed my unease, retracted his hand, and then handed me the pack of ice. Then you put it on yourself. I'll go over there first. He leaned on the counter, looking a bit dejected, and studied the spring-loaded bouncy toy on the table. I felt like I had hurt an innocent boy and was quite uneasy. Of course, at this moment, I didn't know that he was far from being as clean and innocent as he seemed. The school anniversary was still some time away, but our logistics group had already started preparing. One day, 5 or 6 of us in the group were sitting in the school's water bar discussing the details. After that, someone suggested going to a nightclub to relax. Although I was a senior, I was still an introvert and had never been to a nightclub. I was inevitably a bit curious. So when they invited me, after a moment of hesitation, I decided to go with them. We arrived at the nightclub before 10 o'clock. The others had some drinks, and then went dancing. Only Cheng Feng was left with me. Aren't you going? I shook my head. I'm not in the mood to dance. If you want to go ahead. Don't worry about me. He smiled. How could I leave you alone? It's okay. I'll just stay here with you. I thought this night would be uneventful, but Cheng Feng, the socially fearless guy. The next second, he saw some familiar people at a booth through the crowd, and excitedly dragged me over to say hello. There were 5 men sitting there. 3 were facing us, and 2 had their backs to us. I was almost dragged to the booth by Cheng Feng. The man in the middle stood up excitedly when he saw him. Yo, isn't this little Cheng? Brother Yang. When Cheng Feng greeted him, I inadvertently glanced at the 2 men who had their backs to us before. The moment I saw the face of the person a little farther away clearly, my mind went blank with a boom. Oh no, it was Wei Yinxing. He was wearing a white shirt, with the top button undone, revealing a faint glimpse of porcelain white and delicate skin. Perhaps due to the inconvenience of movement, he was unbuttoning the cuff of one wrist with the other hand, his movements deliberate and unhurried. It was as if he were carving a work of art. The instant he noticed me, surprise flashed across his eyes. Then he smiled faintly. The flickering lights concealed the emotions in his eyes. This was so embarrassing. I forced a smile, tugging at the corners of my mouth, and secretly pulled Cheng Feng's clothes. I wanted to say that I would leave for a while, but he was so engrossed in the conversation that he didn't notice my actions at all. Moreover, that brother Yang was introducing Cheng Feng to the people at the booth, and I couldn't get a word in. Since it was inappropriate to leave alone, I could only force a stiff smile and hope he would finish soon. Cheng Feng ran over and shook hands with each of them one by one. That wasn't the end. He then pulled me forward. Brother Yang, this is Huang Qiyang. Brother Yang looked at me and asked Cheng Feng, Little Cheng, is this beauty your girlfriend? I was about to say no when Cheng Feng interrupted and said, Not yet. What did not yet mean? Did it imply that we would be in the future? His answer made me feel a bit uncomfortable. However, I was too embarrassed to say anything. Since he had been kind enough to accompany me tonight, I couldn't spoil his fun. After reluctantly introducing myself to Brother Yang with a forced smile, I was caught up in the enthusiastic atmosphere and awkwardly took my seat. I greeted the others one by one. Brother Yang pointed at Hui Yinxing and laughed. This is Hui Yinxing. Handsome, right? It's not easy to get your senior whore out. If I hadn't dragged him out of his office, you wouldn't have seen him tonight. What a coincidence. Brother Yang laughed heartily. Hui Yinxing turned around and chuckled. Then what should I do? Kiss you? Me? No way. Brother Yang's face turned red instantly. Oh, strange. Why are you blushing? I looked up nervously, my eyes blinking, not knowing whether to move or not. He leaned down, looked into my eyes and asked, Huang Qiang, you don't mind, do you? My heart was pounding wildly, and my face was flushed. I hesitated about how to answer. He smiled, then suddenly reached out, placed his palm on my forehead, lifted his chin, and kissed the back of his own hand. At this moment, time seemed to slow down. There was a loud buzzing in my ears, and I couldn't hear anything clearly. All I could hear was the thumping of my heart. When he straightened up and let go of his hand, he also casually tucked a strand of hair that was sticking to my forehead behind my ear. Only then did I realize that a kiss through a hand could also make one feel breathless. Oh, Hui Yinxing, that's it. Someone rowdy jeering, saying that didn't count and asking for a do-over. Hui Yinxing ignored them, smiled faintly, and walked back to his seat saying, she has a male companion. If I really kissed her, I might not be able to leave tonight. Ha ha ha, right. Don't make a fuss. Brother Yang patted that person and shuffled the cards to continue playing. It took me a long time to regain my senses. Only then did I realize that my face was burning. Senior, are you okay? Cheng Feng changed seats with someone and sat next to me. He smiled as he picked up the cards. The seniors are just more open-minded. Don't take it to heart. They've been working for a few years and just like to have fun. There's no other meaning. I felt there was more to what he said, but my mind was occupied by that kiss, and I had no time to think about what he really meant. I just nodded, reached out to pick up the cards. Cheng Feng ordered a drink for me, saying it had low alcohol content, but it was spicy and tasted terrible. I took a sip and then ran to the bathroom to spit it out. When I was rinsing my mouth with a mouthful of water, I looked up and saw Hui Yinxing enter the bathroom in the mirror. There was a bit of light brown stain on his white shirt, probably from someone spilling a drink. Spitting water doesn't seem very elegant. After thinking for half a second, I swallowed the water with a gulping sound. Hui Yinxing was taken aback and looked at me in confusion. Are you drinking water? I quickly shook my head. No. Rinsing my mouth. After thinking about it, I added, I took a sip of the drink just now. It was so bad. Oh no, did I explain too much? Will he think I'm talkative? Hui Yinxing didn't notice my complicated expression. As he washed his hands, he casually asked, can't drink alcohol? I nodded. Then why did you order it? I didn't order it. He paused for a moment and said, oh, your boyfriend ordered it. He's not my boyfriend. I haven't known him for long. As soon as I shouted that, I realized my reaction was a bit too strong. I blinked and turned my head away, feeling guilty to wash my hands. I see. He nodded in understanding, turned off the faucet, and took a piece of paper to dry his hands. I'll go out first. I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. I got along with him quite naturally. It seemed that what happened that day didn't affect us at all. Come to think of it, that incident wasn't a big deal. I should have let it go long ago. I was just being too hard on myself. I secretly laughed at myself and watched him walk towards the door in the mirror. Huang Qiang. He suddenly stopped and turned to look at me. I looked up in surprise and met his gaze in the mirror. At that moment, my mind went blank. Hui Yinxing hesitated for a moment, then looked into my eyes and said seriously, actually, I didn't quite know how to tell you that day. At that moment my mind went blank again. Hui Yinxing hesitated for a moment, then looked into my eyes and said seriously, what you read is highly misleading. If one were to actually do as described, they might end up in the hospital. You know, crack. It was as if something had shattered. Oh, it was the last bit of my dignity. Dr. Hua. I took a deep breath and said seriously, I know this might sound absurd to you, but actually, I'm an alien from the Trisolaran civilization. These days, I've been researching the literature and art of your Earth. Every aspect is within the scope of my research. I read those books for academic purposes and for the study of different civilizations. I hope you can understand. Huang Qiang, I'm not criticizing you. I'm just offering some health-related advice from a doctor's perspective. Oh, thank you. But the physical structure of us aliens is different from yours. You don't need to worry about me. Are you okay? I'm fine, Dr. Hua. Please keep this a secret for me. I don't want others to know that the Trisolarans have invaded Earth. This news is still too early for you Earthlings. Look at me. I won't. Qiang, look at me. I broke down. Woohoo, I won't. I hugged my head and crouched in the corner, refusing to communicate. I'm an alien, a silicon-based life form. Earthlings can't hurt me. Hui Yanqing rubbed his temples, feeling both headache and amusement. He crouched down halfway and gently patted me. I promised to keep this a secret. Get up. Woohoo, I won't. He sighed softly and said, there's nothing shameful about being an alien. I've never thought it was something to be ashamed of. But, as long as it doesn't bother others or harm your body, you're free to do whatever you want. I hiccuped from crying. I still feel so embarrassed. Don't think like that. It's not embarrassing. Woohoo, he's so nice. I wiped my face and nodded. Hui Yanqing pulled me up, looked at the time, and said, it's getting late. We should probably head back. I nodded repeatedly, like a chick pecking at rice, and left with him. When we returned to the booth, they were still playing games noisily. But except for Brother Yang, almost everyone else was drunk. Cheng Feng threw down his cards and leaned over, his steps a bit unsteady. Why did you take so long? Are you okay? I shook my head. I'm fine. Oh, that's good. After that, he gave Hui Yanqing a strange look, and the smile on his face seemed a bit forced. Then let's go. Let's find the others. It's getting late. We should go back. Brother Yang, we're leaving first. We'll make an appointment another day. As he spoke, he put a hand on my lower back. I wasn't sure if it was intentional or not. My back stiffened, and I quickly took a step to the side to avoid his hand. I forced a smile and said, we should go back. Cheng Feng's hand hung in the air for 2 seconds before he withdrew it awkwardly. Let us give you a ride back. Hui Yanqing took a sip of water and walked towards us. Cheng Feng refused. No need. We can go back by ourselves. Come on. Look at how drunk you are. Brother Yang picked up his coat and called to the others. Let's go too. We'll give these two a lift. The rest of our group were sitting at the bar, taking a break. When they saw me and Cheng Feng being surrounded by several seniors and walking over, they thought we were in trouble. Hui Yanqing and the others all had cars. After going outside, they called a designated driver. Each of them took 2 people and sent us to the vicinity of the school. Since it was too late, the school dormitory's access control system couldn't be opened after 12 o'clock. So we simply opened a few rooms in a hotel near the school. I shared a room with a junior female student. Hui Yanqing personally accompanied us upstairs. The junior girl walked behind me and asked excitedly, who is this? He's so handsome. He's a senior from our school. He's already graduated. Her eyes sparkled. Before closing the door, she asked Hui Yanqing excitedly, Senior, can I add you on WeChat? Hui Yanqing replied coldly, I don't use WeChat. Go to bed early. Just as he was about to close the door, he stopped, looked up, and admonished me. Put the chain on later. Don't open the door to anyone at night. After he closed the doorbell rang 2 seconds later. I quickly opened the door. Hui Yanqing had an expression, as if he'd caught me doing something wrong. Are you testing me? Got it. Chain on, don't open the door. I hung the chain in front of him, and quickly closed the door. I was afraid that if I closed it a second later, my heart would jump out of my chest. The junior girl in the room was fangirling. He's so handsome. Oh my god. On the surface, I said, he's just okay. But in my heart, of course he's amazing. He's Hui Yanqing. How could he not be handsome? I curled up in the quilt, my mind filled with thoughts of Hui Yanqing. I was so happy that I was wriggling around like a maggot. When I woke up the next morning, my pillow was soaked with drool. This is not good. I still couldn't stop thinking about him after waking up. I really wanted to talk to him. It was already past 9 o'clock, and this desire was even stronger than my hunger. I held my phone, hesitated for a long time, and then nervously sent a message to Hui Yanqing. Are you busy? Right after sending it, I regretted it and wanted to retract it. What if he didn't reply? What if he thought I was annoying? Before I could retract the message, Hui Yanqing replied, No. This single word was like a sweet cannonball, hitting my heart directly. He replied, He's so cool. I love it. I couldn't help but smile, covering my blushing face as I replied, Thank you for what happened yesterday. You're welcome. Why is he still so cold? He doesn't seem to want to talk. I was really disappointed and felt like I was being too pushy. The next second he sent another message. Have you returned to school? He cares about me. He wants to chat with me. I quickly replied, Not yet. I'm still in bed. Then I bombarded him with questions. Are you at work already? You're so amazing. I could never get up this early. Are you busy today? By the way, it's so hard to make an appointment at your place. Your schedule is always full. Why isn't he replying? I held my phone tightly, feeling more and more nervous. After a long time he finally replied, Sorry, I'm quite busy today. It's okay. You go ahead and be busy. Well, he is at work, so he must be busy. But wait, he said he wasn't busy just now. Does he think I'm annoying? Did I talk too much? I grabbed my phone, but didn't dare to send another message. I rolled around in bed frustrated. I haven't cared this much about someone in a long time. But how on earth do you talk to a guy who can teach me? The saying goes, even the most determined woman can be won over by a persistent man. Huang Qiang, don't be a coward. Just go for it. After returning to school, my roommate learned about my condition and seriously gave me some advice. Chasing a guy is easy. First, gradually integrate into his life, make him get used to you and depend on you. Then, create some romantic moments at the right time to make him think you're amazing and attract him. Come on, Huang Qiang. You're amazing. Don't be afraid. Encouraged by my roommate, I started sending Hu Yinxing good morning and good night messages every day. However, I wasn't sure if he was too busy or just didn't want to talk to me, but his replies were always very short. Hu Yinxing's replies are so short. You can't say he's ignoring me because he always replies, but he only sends a few words each time. Does he not know how to write long sentences? My roommate shook her head after looking at our chat records. Huang Qiang, this won't work. Chatting every day doesn't mean much. You need to meet him in person and create some romance. Got it. Is it really okay for a girl to be this proactive? Silly. If you're not proactive, someone else will be. Then you'll be the one crying. She's right. I immediately sent a message to Hu Yinxing. Dr. Hua, where do you live? He asked. Are you planning to come to my place? Does he think I'm a creep? Asking like this is really impolite. I was unhappy when Xing Feng asked me where I lived last time. I was startled and quickly explained. No. I'm just asking. It's okay if you don't want to say. After a long time he replied. I'll tell you when you really plan to come. A long sentence. Hu Yinxing can write long sentences. Although I didn't get his address. But his reply this time was longer than before. There's hope. I was so excited that I almost screamed. Then I suddenly remembered. Although I don't know where he lives, I know the address of his clinic. It's only 2 stops away. It's so close. Romance. What is romance? Flowers. Everyone loves flowers. I quickly ordered a bouquet of flowers and took the subway to Hu Yinxing's clinic during my lunch break. The assistant looked at me with a frown. Miss Huang, what are you doing here? The clinic seemed rather cold and intimidating. My courage dwindled from 10 to 1. Many people were looking at me. My scalp tingled and I swallowed hard. I laughed awkwardly and said, I'm here to thank Dr. Hua for treating my decayed tooth. The assistant looked at the flowers and then at me, clearly thinking it was strange. Sending roses? Woohoo, I felt so embarrassed. I forced a smile. I bought them on the street. I didn't notice what kind of flowers they were. He was silent for a while, then forced a smile, his lips twitching. Well, you can put them on the table. I'm a bit tired today, so I won't offer you a seat. I quickly shook my head. Okay. I'll leave now. I turned around and left. The more I thought about it after leaving the room, the more embarrassed I felt. I was so embarrassed that I wanted to bang my head against the wall. When I saw him, I didn't dare to say anything. What kind of romantic plan was this? It was like I was embarrassing myself all over again. I could faintly hear the conversation between Hu Yinxing and the assistant in the room. I looked up and couldn't help but listen. Dr. Hua, are you okay? Why did you let her in? Why didn't you inform me in advance? I thought. My office isn't open to just anyone. In the future, don't let anyone in except for the patients with appointments. I was stunned. Was he talking about me? The door suddenly opened, and the assistant was shocked to see me. Miss Huang, why haven't you left yet? Leaving. I replied in a low voice and rushed out with my head down. My steps were unsteady, as if I wasn't touching the ground. My mind was filled with Hu Yinxing's words. Why did you let her in? Why would he say such things? It's because he hates me. I thought back carefully. His coldness now made sense. My pestering must have bothered him. He doesn't like me. He's just being polite because of his good manners. So that's how it is. My heart sank like a stone, dropping deeper and deeper until it hit rock bottom. Back at school, I was extremely sad. After thinking for a long time, I sent a message to Hu Yinxing. Dr. Hua, I'm sorry for disturbing you these days. I sincerely apologize. Wish you all the best. He didn't reply for a long time. I checked my phone every few minutes. He completely ignored me. I was so aggrieved that I almost cried. Finally, in the evening, he replied. What do you mean? Just these few words. I threw my phone aside and, feeling spiteful, decided not to reply to his message. I felt like I was being overly affectionate, worthless, and terrible. Maybe girls in love become a bit vulnerable. I cried secretly under the covers all night. The next day, I went out full of energy. Huang Qiang will regain my pride. I won't like him anymore. I threw myself into my graduation project and the preparations for the school anniversary, trying to forget my previous embarrassing pursuit. But a few days later, Hui Yinqing actually messaged me first. Are you there? I was stunned for a long time. Then, gritting my teeth, I imitated his cold tone and replied, "What's up?" He took a while to type and then replied, "Nothing. Just a follow-up. How's your tooth?" "It's fine." I replied tersely with these 3 words. I finally got to be cool for once. I finally won against him. I felt a bit proud. After a long time, Hui Yinqing only replied with 1 word. Good. He just had to use fewer words than me. Fine, I won't reply then. I don't know who I was competing with, but I really put away my phone and didn't talk to him anymore. Hui Yinqing, let you experience being ignored. At night, I looked at the conversation that had suddenly stopped and felt an emptiness in my heart. Did I win? No, I lost completely. Hui Yinqing won't be sad, but I am. I'm just torturing myself. That night, Cheng Feng messaged me and asked what kind of guy I liked. His intentions were obvious. I thought spitefully that if Hui Yinqing didn't like me, someone else would. If he didn't cherish me, I'd be with Cheng Feng and see if he regretted it. But then I thought, Hui Yinqing wouldn't regret it. And I didn't need to be with someone I didn't like just to spite him. I replied to Cheng Feng, I don't have any specific criteria. It depends on fate. What do you think of someone like me? I was shocked, afraid he was going to confess. I quickly replied, ha ha ha, you're too young. You're like a little brother. I prefer older guys. Oh, so you like older guys? Like Hui Yinqing? He asked suddenly, and I panicked for no reason. I denied it, saying, not exactly like him. That's good. Cheng Feng then said, guys like him, who have worked for a few years, are rich and good-looking. They never lack girlfriends. Most of the time, they just flirt with girls for fun. You know that, right? I don't know anything. This kid is being sarcastic and talking behind people's backs. How shameless. Even though I thought this in my heart, I replied calmly, thanks for your concern. I'm done for. I'm still angry at Hui Yinqing, but I can't stand others speaking ill of him. Do I have too many rose-colored glasses on when it comes to him? Maybe he's really like what Cheng Feng said. Maybe I just can't see it. I'm just saying this because I'm worried about you. Don't think too much. Cheng Feng said. I put down my phone, feeling extremely melancholy. What's the point of me getting angry and arguing with myself here? Hui Yinqing doesn't even know. The school anniversary arrived soon. I was busy all day, feeling overwhelmed. There was a small-scale speech in the auditorium, and hanging the banners was part of our work. Since I was the only senior student, the teacher naturally asked me to arrange these tasks. But I'm not good at assigning tasks to others, unless it's something I can't do myself. I usually do everything by myself. So after a few days I was exhausted. On the day of the school anniversary, I was wearing a mascot costume, giving out souvenirs at the entrance of the auditorium. The souvenirs were boxed butterfly specimens made by sophomores. When someone took a souvenir from me, they were a bit too forceful and knocked down a bunch of them from my arms. I quickly bent down to pick them up, but because the mascot costume was too bulky, I couldn't reach the ground. In a hurry, I had to do the splits to pick them up, and I was sweating all over. Suddenly, a beautiful and slender hand reached into my field of vision and picked up the fallen butterfly specimens. Before I could say thank you, I saw the person's face and was completely stunned. It was Hui Yinqing. He's here too. He didn't recognize me. He casually placed the specimens in my hand, said something to the person next to him, and walked into the auditorium. You forgot your souvenir. I watched his back, stamping my feet anxiously, but I didn't dare to speak. If I spoke, he might recognize my voice. I didn't want him to see me looking so clumsy. Besides, I had decided to ignore him. Fine, if he doesn't want it, then so be it. I turned around and continued giving out souvenirs to others. The speech was scheduled to start at 2:30. Around 2:10, most of the invited alumni had arrived. The big screen was showing a short video, and my work was almost done. Just as I was about to leave, I suddenly heard a murmur from inside. The host came down and asked, "Where are the logistics staff? Why is no one here?" I hesitated for a moment, then clumsily ran in and asked, "What's wrong?" The host pointed to the stage and said, "The banner has fallen. What on earth did you do? We're going to take pictures later." I quickly made my way through the narrow aisle and carefully inspected. Only then did I discover that the place that should have been fixed with cable clips was merely taped with transparent tape. No wonder it fell. This banner was hung by Cheng Feng. I clearly told him to buy cable clips. You're being so lazy. How could you use tape to fix such an important banner? It's okay. I'll hang it up right now. This wasn't the time to assign blame. The leaders were about to arrive, and I had to hang the banner up quickly. The host seemed a bit anxious. How can it be in time? There's nothing here to fix it with. I opened the drawer of the podium, and it was empty. There were no cable clips. Looking up anxiously, When I saw the holes on the wall where the banner was to be hung, I suddenly had an idea. I immediately took off my headgear and walked towards a female teacher in the audience. "Hello, teacher. May I borrow a hairpin?" The auditorium had a foam-covered wall for warmth and sound insulation. Sometimes, you could even poke a hole with your finger. The material of the banner was easy to thread through the holes. A common small black hairpin could be used to fix it in place. The female teacher hesitated for a moment, and then took off the hairpin from her head. It wasn't enough. I looked up and continued to ask others to borrow. When I turned around, I suddenly met Hu Yinqing's gaze. He was sitting by the right-hand aisle, less than 3 meters away from me. When he saw me, surprise flashed across his eyes. A few seconds later, he actually stood up and asked the audience on his side, "Excuse me, does anyone have a hairpin?" I couldn't describe my feelings at that moment. It was as if when I was fighting alone, a general suddenly rode over to fight by my side. Yet this battle had nothing to do with him originally. "Yes, I do." Someone responded quickly. It was a young lady with her hair in a bun. She stood up, quickly took down her hair, and handed over more than a dozen small hairpins. "Is this enough?" "Thank you." Hu Yinqing thanked her politely, and then walked towards me, spreading out his hand. "Is this enough?" At that moment, my face was covered in sweat. Because of the headgear, my hair was sticking to my face, making me look a bit of a mess. But it didn't seem like the right time to worry about my appearance. Without time to be overly emotional, I nodded. "It's enough. Please help me scrape off the rubber on these hairpins." "Wait a moment." I ran to the storage room and carried out a tripod ladder. When Hu Yinqing saw it, he immediately strode over to help me. No, I can do it myself." He ignored me and silently took the tripod ladder from me and placed it against the wall. "Thank you," I said softly. Then I took off my gloves, reached for the zipper, and prepared to take off the mascot costume and climb up. Hu Yinqing stopped me. "Let me do it." I shook my head with a smile. "No, I can. You won't be able to reach." Why is he suddenly making such a comment? I looked up and realized that he was right. Even if I climbed the ladder, I probably couldn't reach. "Help me hold the ladder then." He looked at me and gave a faint smile. I felt as if I had returned to that night when my heart fluttered. My face flushed hot. I think I'm starting to like him again. "Senior Hua, I'll help hold the ladder too. Be careful." The host also trotted over to help hold the tripod ladder. Hu Yinqing nodded. Then he picked up the banner and climbed up. With everyone watching, he fixed the banner in place. At 2:30, the speech started on time. The auditorium was filled with the flashes of cameras. Standing at the entrance holding my headgear, I finally let out a sigh of relief. There were still some specimens left on the small table next to me. I looked through them and picked out the most beautiful one and put it in my pocket. I wanted to save it for Hu Yinqing. Even though we had been in a cold war for a long time, I still wanted to give him the best. My chest felt warm. I wasn't sure if it was because the mascot costume was too stuffy, or if it was the heat of my own heart. I went to the supermarket and bought a box of new hairpins. Then I sat on the steps outside the auditorium to rest. At 4 o'clock, there was a thunderous round of applause from inside. Then the door opened, and people came out in groups. I caught up with the female teacher and the young lady from before, returned the hairpins to them, and then waited for Hu Yinqing to come out. After a while, he came down the stairs with a few people. When he saw me, he stopped, said a few words to the people around him, and then walked towards me. I quickly took out the specimen and handed it to him. "You forgot to take your souvenir." He took it and looked at it. "It's beautiful. Did you save it for me?" "HM. Thank you for what you did this afternoon." He smiled. "It was nothing. You're welcome." I nodded, looking at him, and couldn't think of anything else to say. "Well, I'm leaving now." I waved goodbye, but he stopped me. "Huang Qiyang." He hesitated for a moment and then asked, "Do you have any plans tonight?" Was he just asking casually or? No. Stop overthinking. I suppressed my wild thoughts and was about to reply when suddenly, Cheng Feng's voice came from behind me. "Qiyang." His shout left me confused. He ran over, greeted Hu Yinqing out of breath, and then said, "The teacher is looking for you. After we finish organizing the data later, he's treating our group to dinner." After he said that, both Hu Yinqing and I fell silent for a moment. Then Hu Yinqing spoke first. He gave a faint smile and said, "Then I won't disturb you. Goodbye." By the time we finished organizing the data, it was already past 8 o'clock in the evening. The teacher leading our group, and the 7 of us in the group, went to a restaurant outside the school for dinner. Everyone was having a great time eating and drinking except me. The teacher patted Cheng Feng on the shoulder and said, "You've all worked hard." Cheng Feng was smiling as he toasted the teacher. "It's all we should do. It's all thanks to your excellent guidance, teacher." He hadn't done much these days. But he was acting like he had done all the hard work. It made me want to vomit. Come on, senior. Let's toast the teacher together. I don't drink. Just one glass. He whispered in my ear. The teacher is in a good mood tonight. Let's have a drink with him. His words made me even more reluctant. But I held back and picked up my glass to clink with everyone else's, and took a sip. As the alcohol took effect, I became more and more irritated with these people. What was worse was that this teacher knew about my situation with Chung Feng. He kept joking and implicitly encouraging Chung Feng, completely ignoring my feelings. As a result, when we were going back to school, the teacher left with the others, leaving Chung Feng and me to take a taxi alone. On the way, Chung Feng got a bit carried away, and suddenly grabbed my hand. Senior, can I be your boyfriend? Probably because I was drunk, my temper flared up. I looked at him sarcastically. Do you think you're worthy? The taxi driver was listening in, and Chung Feng's face turned green immediately. What do you mean? I continued. What do I mean? You're all show and no substance. You're good at flattering others, but you slack off in everything you do. You're full of yourself every day. Anyone who dates you is a fool. My words were too harsh. They made Chung Feng lose face, and he flew into a rage. What are you talking about? Huang Qiang, don't go too far. Too far. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Where were you this afternoon? And that banner? You used transparent tape to fix it. You didn't even buy the cable clips, did you? Do you know it fell? It almost caused an accident. You're going crazy over such a trivial matter? Trivial? You think it's trivial because it didn't happen to you. I'm disgusted just looking at you. Driver, stop the car. Where are you going? None of your business. Fine. Who do you think you are? No one wants to spoil you. Driver, go. Young man, this. Go. With a whoosh, the taxi drove away. I walked on the street at night, overwhelmed by a wave of grievance, and started sobbing. Finally, I sat under a tree and cried. I had so much pent-up frustration with nowhere to vent. Occasionally passers-by would cast curious or mocking glances at me. At that moment, countless sad song lyrics popped into my head for some reason. I felt like the most miserable person in the world. After sitting for a long time, I took out my phone dizzily. I couldn't resist and called Hui Yinxing. Hello. There was a faint sound of pages turning on the other end. It was almost 11 o'clock. He seemed to be reading. I couldn't hold back my tears and started crying. Hui Yinxing paused and asked, "What's wrong? What happened?" I cried for a while. But then I felt ashamed of arguing with someone and being left on the street. I didn't want to say it, and besides, why should I bother him with this? He asked again, and I finally sobbed. Dr. Hui, I have a toothache. How could you have a toothache? I don't know. Maybe it's from chewing on a rib. Stop crying. Where are you? At the street corner at this square. Okay. Find a convenience store and wait there, okay? Don't sit on the curb. I'll come and find you right away. I hung up the phone, looked around, and entered the nearest convenience store. I sat by the window blowing my nose non-stop. The store clerk seemed to want to say something, but held back. Finally, he silently placed a glass of water next to me. I waited and waited, but Hui Yinxing didn't come. Because I was drunk, I was very sleepy, and fell asleep beside the table. After an unknown amount of time, someone gently patted my shoulder. Qiang. When I opened my eyes, it was Hui Yinxing. I didn't know whether to be happy or sad. My eyebrows furrowed, and I stood up tearfully, almost falling. Hui Yinxing was quick, witted, and caught me. He wiped my eyes and said, "Stop crying. You said you had a toothache, right? Let me take a look." He was so close that his breath tickled my face. I really liked him. I don't know where I got the courage from. I couldn't resist and kissed him. He instinctively leaned back, and I missed, falling onto his chest and hurting my nose. I woke up instantly. I'm sorry. I lost my balance. I apologized quickly. He held me up. His mouth moved, but he didn't say anything. After a while he asked, "Does your tooth still hurt?" I shook my head, burying my face and not daring to look at him. "Then I'll take you back to rest first." Hui Yinxing drove me back to school. There was a bit of awkwardness during the whole journey. We arrived downstairs of the dormitory, just before the access control was locked. He stood outside and watched me go upstairs before turning around. After sleeping for a night, I woke up completely sober the next day. I sat on the bed for a while, thinking about my impoliteness last night and Hui Yinxing's reaction. I felt more and more uncomfortable. I was happy that he was willing to help me at first, but when I kissed him, his subconscious dodge brought me back to reality. He helped me out of good manners, and he dodged because he didn't like me. I sighed. It hadn't been long since the last incident, and I had already forgotten the lesson. In his eyes, I must be a clingy and pushy person, right? This is really bad. Why do I always mess things up? I'm starting to dislike myself. I lay back on the bed, angry at myself. Around 10 o'clock, Chung Feng actually called me on WeChat. Without thinking, I hung up. He called several times, and I hung up every time. He had to send me a message. Senior, I was wrong. I was out of line yesterday. I drank too much. Please forgive me. I regret it so much now. I really know I was wrong. I'll definitely change. Please give me a chance, okay? Are you in the dormitory? I'm downstairs. I brought you milk tea. Please come down and see me. At least let me apologize in person. I opened the window speechlessly and saw that he was really there. Using being drunk as an excuse? How shameless. Does he know that he's just as annoying when he's sober? If I went downstairs, I didn't know how long he would pester me. I turned around, filled a basin with water, and poured it down with a splash. A few seconds later, I heard his angry shout from below. Huang Qiang, who do you think you are? You're so ungrateful, Huang Qiang. I came to see you out of kindness and you do this to me. I ignored him and didn't show my face. Slowly, a crowd gathered downstairs, pointing and whispering. Before long, the dormitory aunt rushed out with a broom and chased him away. After that, it spread around the school that Chung Feng, a junior, had failed to pursue a girl, and had even cursed at her downstairs. His character was said to be extremely poor. Of course, that was what happened later. After pouring water on Chung Feng, I went back to my desk, turned on the computer, and prepared to organize the data. I still had a lot of work to do for those 5 extracurricular credits. Not long after, I suddenly received a message from my roommate. Qiang, something big happened. Hui Yinqing is with a woman. My heart skipped a beat. Then my roommate sent me a short video. It was really Hui Yinqing. Next to him was a tall and glamorous woman. Salvage his arm as they walked into a coffee shop together. At that moment, my mind went blank with a buzz. He's with another woman? Does he have a girlfriend? I watched the video over and over. The woman was so beautiful, like a female celebrity. Even the terrible angle couldn't hide her beauty. I asked my roommate, "Can you see clearly? What are they doing?" My roommate replied, "It's too far away. I didn't dare to get closer. But they seem very close." Looking at the woman's beautiful profile in the video, my heart grew colder and colder. No wonder he had dodged me. No wonder he didn't like me. It was all because of her. I put down my phone, feeling extremely confused. With the computer on, I couldn't focus on my work at all. The screen was filled with meaningless symbols. I was so sad that my scalp tingled, but I couldn't cry. The school anniversary wasn't over yet. In the afternoon, I went to another event to help with the sign-in. During the whole process, I was emotionless like a walking corpse. I kept thinking, was that woman really his girlfriend? When did they get together? Maybe she wasn't his girlfriend. Maybe she was just a patient or something. But why would a patient salvage his arm? I wanted to ask him and find out what was going on. But who was I to care about who he was with? What was really going on? By 8 p.m., all the work was finally done. I sat by the fountain, lost in thought for a long time. I couldn't hold back any longer. I didn't want to keep guessing. I took out my phone, summoned up my courage, and called him, determined to get to the bottom of things. "Hello." A soft and extremely pleasant voice came through the phone, and I froze instantly. It was a woman who answered. "Hello. Are you still there?" I remained speechless for a while before asking, "Hello, may I ask if Hui Yinqing is there?" The woman on the other end gave a gentle laugh and said, "He's taking a shower." "What do you want from him?" "Taking a shower? Alone with a woman at 8 p.m. What else could they be doing?" I felt as if I had fallen into an ice cave, and suddenly realized how pathetic I was. It's nothing. I'm sorry to bother you." I hung up the phone, feeling completely devastated. No wonder he didn't like me. Compared to that beautiful and gentle sexy woman, I was nothing. Absolutely nothing. I sat there for a long time, with emotions piling up inside me, clogging my chest and welling up in my eyes. Before long the fountain started. The water jets shot up suddenly, and my emotions burst out along with them. Tears streamed down my face. This had truly been a miserable period. A child playing by the fountain noticed me crying and asked curiously, "Sister, what's wrong?" I half laughed, half cried and replied, "The fountain is so beautiful. I've never seen such a wonderful one in my life." This fountain is on every day. Are you from another school?" "I'm from another planet." A powerful jet of water shot up high, and the splashing water came towards me. People around quickly stepped back to avoid it, but I didn't move. I let myself get soaked. This act of self-punishment and self-harm brought a strange sense of pleasure, allowing me to release my pent-up negative emotions. After getting drenched for a while, my phone rang. To my surprise, it was Hui Yinqing calling. My nose twitched with sadness, and I hung up by pressing the screen. He called again soon. I hung up again, and again he called. After staring at the phone for a long time, I finally couldn't resist and answered. I had intended to act cold, but the moment I heard his voice, I couldn't hold back my urge to cry. Chiang, did you call me just now? Why aren't you talking? Are you crying? Huang Chiang, what's wrong? I finally took a deep breath, suppressing my sobs, and said, What do you want? I'm busy. Spit it out. What's wrong with you? Are you crying? I was on the verge of a breakdown and said, It's none of your business. Why aren't you staying with your beauty? Why do you care about me? What beauty? What do you mean, what beauty? Hui Yinqing, I must be crazy to like you so much. He suddenly fell silent. Then his voice trembled slightly as he asked, What did you just say? I said you're an idiot. He actually laughed. Huang Chiang, where are you? Why should I tell you? With the loud background noise of the fountain and the broadcast on my side, he probably guessed where I was. He quickly said, I know where you are. Stay put and wait for me. What are you going to do? I could hear the whooshing sound of the wind. It seemed he was running. Don't leave. Wait for me. Then with a beep, the call ended. Why should I wait for him, just because he told me to? I won't. I turned to leave, but after taking 2 steps I turned back. What if he really came? What if he couldn't find me? I felt so pathetic, but I just couldn't bear to leave. I still wanted to see him, even if it was just to slap him in the face. But why would I slap him? I thought this idea was crazy, yet it somehow made me feel better. I decided I must slap him when he arrived. I sat back down by the fountain. After about 10 minutes, before I could figure out what to say to him, his car appeared. He parked the car by the roadside very quickly, and then walked briskly towards me. All the scathing words I had prepared like a female protagonist in a revenge story vanished from my mind. I looked at him, filled with overwhelming sadness. He was breathing slightly heavily. He reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair that was stuck to my face behind my ear. What happened to you? You're a grown-up. Are you playing with water? I swatted his hand away and stood up. Don't touch me. You rush out at night. Won't your girlfriend be angry? He furrowed his brows. What girlfriend? Is he pretending? I glared at him. Stop playing dumb. My roommate saw you 2 arm in arm today. She was wearing a red dress and looked really sexy. Huang Chiang. He looked at me, a mix of annoyance and amusement in his eyes. That was my mom. I was stunned. My mind went blank with a boom. How could that be? She looked so young and beautiful. I couldn't believe it and stammered. You're lying. She looks like she's in her 20s. She's always been good at taking care of herself. Wait, is this why you're angry? Why didn't you call and ask me? I was shocked beyond words. Sui ho, a wave of joy like exploding fireworks surged within me. She wasn't his girlfriend. That was great, just great. I was so happy that I almost cried. I looked up at him, with a mix of grievance and relief, and said sheepishly, I did call. She answered and said you were in the shower. I thought. He seemed a bit angry. Couldn't you call again? Couldn't you wait to hear it from me? If I hadn't come today, were you just going to misunderstand me forever? I felt a bit guilty and stammered after a long while. I was afraid of bothering you. You seem annoyed even when I just chat with you casually, let alone something like this. I'm not annoyed. He looked at me seriously and said, I like it. As long as it's you reaching out to me. I like it no matter what it is. He said he liked it? Liked me reaching out to him? A gentle breeze blew, tousling my hair. I grabbed a handful of my hair, my breathing uneven, and my heart in turmoil. After being stunned for a long time, I quickly shook my head. No, you don't like it. Every time I message you, you just reply with a few words. It's obvious you don't want to talk to me. He was surprised for a moment and then said, I just don't know how to chat over the phone. If you like listening to me talk, come to me in person. I'll talk for as long as you want. I was speechless, staring at him blankly. His gaze was so earnest that all my grievances and sadness melted away like cotton candy under his eyes. My bitter heart gradually turned sweet. He did care about me, right? He liked me, right? My feelings for him hadn't been in vain, right? My nose twitched again. I felt vulnerable, on the verge of crying and laughing at the same time. I asked him, Then why did you dodge when I tried to kiss you last night? He wiped my eyes and let out a soft sigh. I didn't mean to dodge. But in what capacity should I kiss you? I'm not even your boyfriend. I don't even know what I mean to you. I was not be convinced. Can't you tell how much I like you? He said, Sometimes I think I can, and sometimes I can't. You're so unpredictable. One day you send me messages non-stop, and the next you disappear. One moment you send me flowers, and the next you ignore me. What am I supposed to think? If you hadn't just said you like me, I might not have come to find you today. It's clearly you who's being unpredictable. I'm not. I lowered my eyes, sniffled, and suddenly found it funny. We clearly liked each other, but we had misunderstood each other for so long, because we were too sensitive and speculative. We were such fools. Hui Yinqing. I looked up at him, my eyes filled with tears, and asked, You owe me a kiss for last night. Make it up to me. He was taken aback for a moment and then said seriously, "That won't do. I won't do something without a proper reason." My face burned with embarrassment. After holding back for a long time, I asked shyly, "Then, would you be my boyfriend?" He couldn't help but smile softly and pulled me into his arms. Sure. I finally got the guy I liked. My roommate said I woke up smiling from my dreams for several days in a row. Not long after we got together, he took me to meet his mother. She was an incredibly beautiful woman. No wonder she gave birth to such a handsome son like Hui Yanqing. According to Hui Yanqing, his mother left the family and went to the United States alone a few years ago, which made him somewhat resistant to her. But after all, she was his mother. After several arguments and conversations, they reconciled. The day I went to the clinic to send him flowers, his mother happened to visit him too. Because of Hui Yanqing's resistance, they had a very unpleasant argument. His mother left just before I arrived, which was why I saw him in such a bad mood. I thought back carefully. That day when I went to his office, I almost bumped into a woman. But I was walking with my head down at that time, and only saw her high-heeled shoes, not her face. So that woman was his mother. So that's why you suddenly ignored me during that period. Hui Yanqing was a bit annoyed. I said aggrievedly, "It's your fault for saying things that made me misunderstand. How could I know you were eavesdropping outside?" I was left speechless. He took my hand and said seriously, "Don't make wild guesses in the future, okay? And don't be so unpredictable. Unless you hear me say it with your own ears that I don't like you. Of course." A glimmer of amusement appeared in his eyes. "I won't stop liking you." My face turned red, and I buried my head in his chest, smiling secretly. I knew it. A great person like me. How could he not like me? Some misunderstandings are probably the tests fate has arranged for us. Fortunately, we were quite lucky. After dating Hui Yanqing for half a year, after I graduated, I stayed in this city to work and moved in with him. However, we hadn't slept together yet. Every day seeing such a handsome man around, I was almost drooling, especially when I heard the sound of the shower when he was bathing. I couldn't help but want to burst into the bathroom. But I never had the courage. Until one night, after eating a few alcohol-filled chocolates, I was a bit tipsy. I sneaked into his study, pushed aside the books, and sat directly on his lap, making his eyes clouded with desire. "You're drunk." "No, I'm not." I lay in his arms, slowly unbuttoning his shirt as I said, "Dr. Hua, there's something I don't understand. Can you teach me?" He gritted his teeth and asked in a hoarse voice, "Do you know what you're doing?" "I'm learning. You don't want me to go astray, do you?" He stared at me for a moment, then finally couldn't hold back and turned me over, taking the initiative. I overestimated myself and underestimated him. After that night, I completely lost the initiative. I was like a drowning duck, struggling in his gentle dominance. In the end, I finally realized a truth. Sometimes one doesn't have to be so eager to learn. Some things are just beyond one's grasp. The end.